September 16th, 2020, 4 p.m. The meeting is held through remote participation by the Assembly of Delegates pursuant to Massachusetts Governor Charles D. Baker's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law on March 12, 2020. The meeting will be live streamed on YouTube. Anyone wishing to make a comment can do so by calling 1-929-205-6099. And the ID number is 920-7082-5651. You need to press *9 to raise your hand to be recognized and *6 to unmute. These numbers are all on the county website if you go to the agenda for today's meeting. And all you have to do is Google Assembly of Delegates agenda. The documents were provided in advance of this meeting related to the agenda, and they can also be accessed at the website. Before we call to order, because we have a lot of new faces and new people, I wanted to just read a few sentences so that people understand how the public meeting works. And this is about 2 or 3 sentences. Under the open meeting law, the public is permitted to attend meetings of public bodies, but is excluded from an executive session that is called for a valid purpose listed in the law. While the public is permitted to attend an open meeting, an individual may not address the public body without permission of the chair. An individual may not disrupt a meeting of a public body. And that's just a reminder how the Assembly of Delegates operates. I think a lot of people, don't maybe know that. So I just wanted to make sure that we started our meeting that people need to be recognized to speak. We would like to start with a moment of silence to honor our troops who've died in service to our country and all those serving our country in the armed forces. Next is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Douglas Brown.
Here.
Mary Chafee.
Here.
Terry Gallagher.
Here.
Lillian Green.
Here.
Elizabeth Harder.
Here.
Christopher Kanega. James Killian.
Here.
Suzanne McAuliffe.
Here.
Deborah McCutcheon. Thomas O'Hara.
He's here.
Tom? Oh, he's connecting to audio.
Okay.
He raised his hand.
All right. John Ullman.
Here.
Brian O'Malley.
Brian?
He's here. He's muted.
Here.
Yeah.
Randy Potash.
Here.
Patrick Princey.
Here.
Linda Zern.
Here.
Madam Speaker, you have a quorum with 96.34% of the delegates present. 3.66% are absent.
Thank you. I'll take a motion to approve the calendar of business.
So moved.
Second.
Will the clerk call the vote, please?
Douglas Brown.
Yes.
Mary Chafee.
Yes.
Terry Gallagher.
Yes.
Lillian Green.
Yes.
Elizabeth Harder.
Yes.
Christopher Kanega. James Killian.
Yes.
Suzanne McAuliffe.
Yes.
Thomas O'Hara.
Yes, Tom? Raise your thumb. We can't hear you.
John Ullman.
Here. Yes.
Brian O'Malley.
Yep.
Randy Potash.
Yes.
Patrick Princey.
Yes.
Linda Zern.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, the business calendar passes with 96.34% of the delegates voting yes, 3.66% are absent.
The next, I'll take a motion to approve the Journal of September 2nd, 2020.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any corrections? Yes, Delegate Chafee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 2 minor corrections. On page 35, There's a statement that I made that I think one word needs to be corrected. It's the beginning of a paragraph that says, and if there are concerns about an individual manner, I believe I said individual matter, M-A-T-T-E-R. And then the paragraph that follows that is bolded, and I don't think it should be bolded. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Are we ready to vote with the corrections?
Yes.
So the clerk, please call the vote.
Doug Brown,
Yes.
Mary Chafee,
Yes.
Terry Gallagher,
Yes.
Lillian Green,
Yes.
Elizabeth Harder,
Yes.
Christopher Kanega, James Killian,
Yes.
Suzanne McAuliffe,
Yes.
Thomas O'Hara, John Oman,
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Yeah, okay, I am. You can unmute your, it's all right, I got you.
Brian O'Malley,
Yes.
Randy Potash,
Yes.
Patrick Princey,
Yes.
Linda Zern.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, the journal is approved. 96.34% of the delegates voting yes, 3.66% are absent.
Next, we have communications and updates from the Board of Regional Commissioners and County Administration. I think we could start with the County Commissioners. I see Chairman Bergstrom here. Welcome.
Welcome. We've had two meetings since I last talked to you. The first meeting was on the 9th. We did our usual update on the COVID-19 crisis, and the news continues to be good. I'll give you the update as of today. We only had 2 new cases in the entire state. No one right now in the hospital. So we're doing very well, and I discussed this with the health department. They said we're doing much better than the rest of Massachusetts. I'll let Jack, if he's there, tell you about attempts to open up the Cape earlier than the rest of Massachusetts. So far, have not gotten permission to do that. I think Franklin County is also considering petitioning the governor to give us slack, considering how well we've done in numbers of COVID-19 down. We also authorized the submission of comments by the commissioners to the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection and the draft 2020-2030 Massachusetts Solid Waste Master Plan. We authorized the execution of a bond anticipation note in the amount of $1,643,911 for capital improvements. These are capital improvements that are already in the pipeline. Got a good interest rate. Tried to punch up details as to what goes into that, but unfortunately I haven't been able to come up with it. We've had a discussion regarding a restructuring of the county finance department. We've had a discussion regarding a job description for the assistant public health nurse position in the Barnstable County Health and Environmental Department, and we are submitting an ordinance, a proposed ordinance to add to the county's operating budget in the amount of $140,340 for the fiscal year 2021 to fund the activities of the public health nursing program in the Health and Environmental Department. So you should be getting that ordinance. We've gone over this before. We're planning on assisting both the County Department of Health and also individual town Department of Health during the COVID crisis. And we have we approved ordinance 20-10. You must be happy to hear this.
Finally.
Advise and attend the Barnstable County Home Rule Charter, which you sent to us. And I'm not going to go over it, but it says to include a recall position for the removal from office of a member of the Board of Regional Commissioners and authorize the filing of a petition to the Massachusetts General Court for special legislation filed by the Assembly of Delegates with the approval of the Board of Regional Commissioners. That passed 2 in favor of 1 abstaining. Okay, and then we had a discussion regarding the Barnstable County Regional Government Code of Conduct. It was just a general discussion. regarding any complaints that against a county official or anyone acting on behalf of the county. There's an official complaint process that we're putting in place. We'll start with CAC units and also down the line to the Human Resources Department. We discussed we had a discussion regarding the fiscal year 2021 county dredge schedule. I hope you got that. I had them copied to the assembly so you could have that. And we also had, once again, an update on county-owned real estate located at 875 County Road in the town of Bourne. This goes time and time again to the land that we have in Pocasset. We're planning on selling to the town of Bourne. We had the execution of an agreement with the home program to provide $100,000 for tenant-based rental assistance from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. More about this on today's meeting. It's only $100,000, and there's a lot of people who need assistance. And that was pretty much what we did on the 9th. Today, once again, we had the update, and I told you it was favorable. We'll see in a week the outcome of the big Labor Day weekend. See if that makes a difference in the spike or not. We also had a discussion regarding the Barnstable County Home Emergency Tenant-Based Rental Assistance Program. I don't know if Beth is with you today, but it's basically the number of grants that the counties received, which could not be used for any other purpose. The federal government allowed it to use it for other purposes regarding tenant-based rental assistance. So we now transferred $100,000 into that program to help people who are behind on their rent because of the unemployment situation. Great help from Patty Daly of the Cape Cod Commission, and also working with Housing Assistance Corporation. So just a drop in the bucket, but it will help. We had an update on the AmeriCorps Cape Cod program. We actually touched on this. Jack touched on it under his report from the administration. We are transferring that from the RDO to facilities under, I can't think of getting bad on names lately, even though I discussed it this morning at 10 o'clock. But basically, we looked at the program. We have 15 now. We are looking at getting back to 24. I had a brief discussion about getting back to the original 32, and we can ask each year for additional help. There's some discussion about a fire training service the county will take over. There's also a discussion about help with the herring liver project up in Wealthy. As it stands now, we are going to have going to go back to the 24. We have the houses, the 4 houses, and it seems like the program is back on track, presuming that nothing happens. Phil Burt, it is now under Phil Burt's auspices. He gave us quite a discussion after they had a meeting last Friday. We extended some programs that we have on opiate abuse prevention from 2020 to 2021. This is the original grant of $696,000. They added $75,000 to this program to fight opiate abuse on the Cape. We also had an additional $75,000 to extend a program that deals with substance abuse prevention. That pretty much covers it. Any questions? Presuming I can answer them.
Yes, just hold on a minute, Delegate O'Malley and Delegate Killian. I can't see everyone on one screen, so I will recognize people I see and then slide over the screen. So just be patient. It may take a little bit longer. Delegate O'Malley.
Thank you. Commissioner Bergstrom, you mentioned on the 9/9 meeting something about a Massachusetts solid waste management, and I really couldn't understand quite what you said.
Okay, it is public comment period went out for the solid. I'll get it back to you. Barnstable County Board of Commissioners, that's us, submitted comments to the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection draft 2020-2030 Massachusetts Solid Waste Master Plan. If you want to know what's in the master plan, I can't tell you off my head, but this is a routine where plans like this go out to public comment, and we submitted them, and you can get a copy of our comments if you want from Jack or someone else. I can't give you too much information on exactly what the comments were.
Yeah.
Ron, Bergstrom,
Yeah.
I think we're losing you a little. I don't know if it's when you down or we lose the microphone. Brian, did you get, or Jack, you have some more information?
Yeah.
Okay.
Am I coming in a little better? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
The letter, Dr. Melly, is a letter that states the county's position regarding changes to the MSW program. Every 10 years, DEP changes it, and they have to go out to public comment. So Patty Daly, Michelle White, and Carrie Parcells, along with some commission staff, put together some suggested and relevant comments for the commissioners that will help support the MSW program going forward. And that's what the letter was sent for. So it's now part of the public record in the comments of the DP.
Jack, is this then part of our application for funding for the big study that we've heard about?
No, we're funding that study. The county agreed to fund that study. But this would be along those lines. Exactly. DP is not funding the feasibility studies at this point in time.
Delegate Killian.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good afternoon, Commissioner Bergstrom. Yeah, your presentation was a little garbled, so I missed some of what you were talking about, but specifically, you had mentioned about petitioning the governor for relaxing some of the restrictions in Barnstable County. Did you allude to who would be doing that on our behalf? Is that the delegation? Is that the task force? How would that be taken up?
Well, I don't know if I used the word petition. I probably was an overstatement. We have an ongoing task force. Jack is part of that, the reopening task force. We have a reopening task force for the county itself, but we also are part of county, county-wide, reopening of the Cape. And I questioned Jack on it, whether we could get any relief, and I'm going to turn it over to him.
Yep.
Do the same information he gave me this morning.
Yeah, given the county's repetitive, very low numbers, and given the fact that we are a community that relies upon our small businesses, we have been trying via our members that actually sit on the Governor's Advisory Task Force as well, to have Barnstable County treated differently than the metro regions for obvious reasons. We're not having problems. We desperately need flexibility to get restaurants back open again. And our wedding and events, special events programming down here has been absolutely devastated. And we think that is something in particular the governor's office and the health and safety personnel up in Boston could take a look at and recognize that in balance, it would be great if we could gradually get back into those particular professions. We're not the only ones. Berkshire County is likewise joining us in that petition to regionalize some of these regulations. And it just seems to make a lot of sense to do so. I can tell you the good news is that rentals, the rental market in terms of September and October has not slowed down. It's way above last year. Overall, our rental market in terms of motels hotels and short-term, long-term rentals over the summer was still close to 80%, way above the metro regions, and still way above Berkshire as well. So it was a very good year for Cape Cod and that end of the business. But we all know that how restaurants are struggling and how special events coordinators have absolutely nothing to keep them going right now. So.
I mean, I agree with that 100%, and because our numbers have been very good for quite a while. And I remember early on in the season, there was a lot of concern because obviously we're going to have tourists, like you just mentioned. Do we have any data yet? And it might be too early to determine what the actual numbers of people that were here. You just said we had like an 80% of last year. So just out of curiosity, what our actual population jumped to this summer and compared to its normal population, and the fact that our numbers, our infection numbers went nowhere. So
Yeah.
despite all the hand-wringing about more tourists coming and higher numbers, it never happened. So I think we really do have a solid argument for relieving some of this restrictions.
It's really hard to say, Jim. I think the best way that we could attack that issue, that the answer to that question, is to look at water usage and sewer usage, because so many people don't go to hotels and motels. They come down and stay in their second homes, and that's with expanded families. Some restaurants did very, very well, particularly restaurants that had a history of takeout. They had a good season. Ice cream sellers had a great season. Trades had an incredible season. So it's really hard to say how many people really came. But if you're 80% occupancy in the hotel motel business, then we had a pretty full summer. And
No,
the beaches were packed.
I think everyone who lives here will agree that it didn't seem any less crowded than any other summer. The only
right.
difference, again, being the restaurants. You could always get a seat no matter where you wanted to go.
Yeah.
Anyway, I would like to follow up.
Let me just remind everybody too, the data dashboard that the Cape Cod Commission has set up is a great place to find these statistics, and they change all the time. They're being updated daily. And also the Cape Cod Commission has done a business survey. They now had 400 responses in, and they're sorting through those. And any day they'll be posting the results of those and what businesses were impacted and how the impacts have affected them short-term and long-term.
So back to my original question, did we get an answer of where this is going to lead in terms of who is going to be speaking on our behalf to try to lobby for this?
I know that the delegation has been. I don't know if it's going to get any legs. But
okay.
Take a look at some of the rules, and rolling back the 50 to 25, for instance. All that did was create a surge in backyard parties, but it grossly affected weddings, grossly affected some special events, and these are the things that I think we can fix going forward very quickly if these numbers stay low. I think the governor's being cautious right now because of the colleges returning and the spikes that you're seeing across the Boston region. But once that settles down a little bit, I think we might see some changes.
I would make a suggestion that perhaps the Assembly would want to pass a resolution urging the governor to give us some relief from the restrictions. I know.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent suggestion. I think that's where Delegate Killian was headed.
I think it makes a lot of sense, and it would help us get the message out. Yep.
I have, are you all set, Delegate Killian?
Yes, thank you.
I have Delegate Green, then Delegate Harder. They'd have their hands up. Delegate Green.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And thank you, Chairman Bergstrom, for your report. I couldn't hear some of your report. Could you repeat what you said, or do you have any further information about the help with the Herring River project? It kind of got garbled.
All I can tell you is, and I don't know if Phil Bird is on this call, is that in the meeting that the AmeriCorps Advisory Board had, discussion came up about having AmeriCorps volunteers help with the Herring River project, and I think that was brought up by the head of the National Seashore. So that was, I can't give you too much details because I don't think there are that many details right now. But we're looking forward to what projects the AmeriCorps people might be involved in, and that was one of them. I think they need some help. So.
We can get a report on that down the road as well, if that's of interest. Yes. Also, Delegate Harder.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Jack, did Vera sign off on asking for weddings and large events? Because I've just been reading about the wedding in Maine that's killed 7 people who didn't even attend the wedding. So does Vera think?
No, we're not.
Okay.
We're not asking for carte blanche. We're just asking to return to the numbers, and then gradually increase the numbers. So it would go back to 50, and it maybe go up to 100. But we're not talking about weddings like that, where there was 300 people in a little church building. And I've got to tell you that most of our function facilities on Cape Cod have gone above and beyond the sanitary requirements put out by DPH, and they don't want to attack their limits either.
So it would be 50 to 100.
Yeah, in that range, right? It certainly wouldn't be carte blanche. Let's just open it up again.
Okay.
I don't see any other assembly delegate hands up. Did want to, and I had sent you an email to this effect. Can you give us a brief update, or perhaps Erica can, on the enforcement officers and what their status is, how long you anticipate they will be here, and any of the financial impacts of that? I don't know if you have that, Jack, or if you wanted Erica to address that.
If Erica's here, that'd be great. But
yes, Erica's here. Erica, would you like to address that?
Yes, this is, for the record, Erica Woods, Deputy Director for Health and Environment. They are working until the end of September. Their hours have drastically reduced since the end of the summer. Basically, what they were doing was, going out to different areas of the town, doing educational promotions, either at the beach or just talking to business owners to help them come into compliance and make sure that they were doing everything that they needed to do to keep the public safe. But yeah, they're definitely scaling back. I think the towns, actually, there's a couple of them that would love to use them all winter, but they will be ending at the end of the month, and things are definitely slowing down a bit for them.
Okay, great. The reason I asked was I know the nurses are coming up as another personnel budget item, and I was just looking for money. But I understand the program.
Madam Speaker, can I say one more
Yes.
one more thing that I'd like to mention? We've been having
Yes.
routine reports from the registry at every meeting. The report, they've been very optimistic, as you know. And the report that we got this morning was that we had originally estimated we would receive, I think, 1.3 million in September, that the registry would do 1.3 million, and they're already, as of this morning, at 1 million. So it looks like we're going to have another big year at the registry.
Yeah, we're very fortunate.
But the houses, the warning is that the houses, everybody's buying up the houses that are available, and
Right. There'll be no stock left.
Speaking of nurses, too, let me remind everybody on the call that on the 26th from 8 to 12 a.m., the county is hosting a flu vaccine clinic here. You do not need appointments. It's open to everybody from the county. So take it back to your constituencies and tell them to drive right up, and they can get their flu vaccine.
It's a drive-through clinic, correct?
Right, September the 26th, next Saturday, a week from Saturday.
All right. I think that's it for the county commissioners and the administrator. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the presentation from Brian. I'm not even going to attempt, is it Baumgartel, Director of Mass Alternative Septic Systems Test Center. And you were going to give us an update. There you are.
There I am.
You had sent us a PowerPoint. I don't know if you wanted to put that up, if you're prepared to do that, or we follow on our own. Okay, thank you very much. Welcome.
Very good. Madam Chair, members of the Assembly, thank you for having me this evening. Again, my name is Brian Baumgartel. I am now the director of the Massachusetts Alternative Septic System Test Center, which we call MassTC. I'm kind of a new face for probably some of you. So in my presentation tonight, I'll kind of give you an update as to what the test center actually is. So I'm going to do a little screen share here of my presentation. Hopefully this comes up. Can everybody see that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna put this into present mode. There we go. Okay, so what's a mass tech? Some people call it mass tech. Some of us call it mass TC. Whatever it is, we like to think of it as the nation's premier third-party testing and research facility for innovative and alternative on-site septic system technologies. So in the early 90s, nitrogen was identified as a problem in Cape Cod estuaries. And then later in the 90s, alternative systems, which are septic systems that involve, pumps and switches and all sorts of fun stuff, which are intended to treat wastewater better than a standard Title V system. And a Title V system would be a septic tank with a leach field, which is, of course, an upgrade over the old cesspools and cesspits that were installed in the Cape during the big building boom. In the early 2000s, nitrogen was identified as a problem in Cape Cod estuary. So, of course, our excess nitrogen makes its way down into our estuaries and causes algae blooms and fish die-offs and all sorts of bad things that we've all probably read about in the news. Let's see. I can't really see the left-hand side because I've got the panel with all of you on. Let me see if I can. There we go. Okay. I want to go back a couple. Here we go. Okay. 2010s, early 2000s, the test center was set up to be able to test some of those alternative technologies to make sure that, the claims that were being made by the system vendors were actually true as far as nitrogen removal. And to also to encourage new technologies to come into the state to sort of expand our toolbox when it comes to treating our wastewater, and also to do some original research into the area of on-site wastewater treatment to see, to answer a number of questions about Title V or, maybe some of the new ideas on the horizon. So the test center's been here for over 20 years now doing that work. And then as we sort of look into the future, we're focused on, of course, our sort of core business, which is, encouraging new technologies and inviting them to come and test their product. But in addition, looking at more sustainable methods of treatment, because sustainability is, really a key aspect when it comes to wastewater treatment. If we, use a whole lot of fossil fuels and put a lot of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere as we're trying to treat our wastewater, then we're, maybe fixing one problem and creating or contributing to another. So as we look to the future, really trying to encourage more sustainable methods of treatment. So we've had companies come here to test their products from all over the world. Obviously the United States, Canada, Germany, Russia. We have a company here right now from Japan. And within the United States, really, all over the place from Florida to Louisiana, Ohio, Maine. So, companies come all over the place to come here. And why do they come here? Because this is really one of the only facilities of this type, really on the whole North American continent. There's one small facility in Waco, Texas. There's one out in Vancouver, and there's one up in Quebec. And that's really it for the whole North American continent. And we are the only one of those that allow companies to come and do research and development work. So it's really a pretty unique place to have right here on Cape Cod. A lot of people are surprised to hear that we're even here doing the work that we are. We do a lot of cross-discipline collaboration. The work that we do wouldn't be possible without the folks who are on this list. United States EPA, we work with them quite a bit on a couple of projects, and I'll tell you a little bit more about those a little bit later. Of course, Mass DEP is one of our greatest champions out there. We do a lot of work for them. University of Rhode Island, we have some great partners over there that we have worked with on some grants. Buzzards Bay Coalition, the Barnstable Clean Water Coalition, Stony Brook University. So, we work with a lot of diverse organizations, whether they're government or nonprofit or universities, and of course the private sector themselves, the people who are producing these technologies, to try to bring some new methods of on-site wastewater treatment to our area. And really, it extends well beyond us, but really it's a nationwide sort of effort, and really it's a global effort even beyond there. So as I said, it's a pretty cool place to work. So to give you an idea sort of how the product testing and the research and development processes go. So if somebody wants to get some sort of a certification or a regulatory approval, what will happen is that client will come out to the test center, install their unit, will conduct the testing that they want, which could involve, the sampling that goes with it, or putting it under a series of stress tests, which could involve shutting the power off for a couple days, feeding it a bunch of loads of laundry wash water. So we try to put the systems to the test with the stress tests. And then once that test is over, we'll report out to a certification body, or it might go to a state where the company is looking to get their approval. The research and development process is a little bit different. They install the unit themselves. We'll conduct the sampling for them. They'll take that sampling data and maybe do some adjustments to their system, maybe totally, rethink what they're doing, and dig the product out of the ground and take it home. After they do the adjustments, we'll do some more sampling, then they'll do more adjustments, then we'll do more. So it kind of continues in that direction. So some companies will come in here. We have one company who's been here for over 15 years with their system. Whenever they come up with a new idea for it, they can come out here and tweak it and see if it, improves their treatment, or, if they have a question from a regulatory agency, they have the ability to answer that question pretty quickly. So the place is really funded by that product testing and research and development activity. So the clients who come out here pay a fee for the spot, kind of like rent. That fee is about $900 a month, depending on the type of testing that they're trying to do. It might be a bit more because of the increase, in our labor costs and those things. If we have to do a lot more sampling on the system, then of course it takes up more of our time. So the funds that we generate from those site fees pay for pretty much everything we do out here as far as our utilities and some of our research activities. And it also pays for a full-time operator to be out here and to do that sampling and to make sure that the systems are running as they should be. We also have a number of grants that we are participating in with different agencies, and those grants help to pay for some of our staff as well. So with the exception of my pay, for the most part, this place pretty much stands on its own. It's a great example of a public-private partnership that has really proven itself to be worthwhile and also needed as we've kind of gone through this wastewater treatment trial here on the Cape. Let me see if I can jump to the next slide. There we go. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of our active research projects. We have a whole bunch of them, and really if I told you about all of them, I'd be here for the next 2 hours telling you about each of them. So I'm just going to focus on a couple, and if you want to have me back for another night to talk about the other stuff we're doing, I'd be happy to. So you've probably heard in the past, George Hoyfelder, who was the prior director here. George is still here, still happy, still works more than full time, and still loves driving the backhoe around. So he brought the layer cake sort of paradigm to Cape Cod based on some work that he had seen done in other areas up at University of Waterloo and later in Florida that involves taking wood chips and sawdust and mixing them into some of the materials beneath a leach field. And it turns out that doing that provides a pretty good boost in nitrogen removal performance. For one of the systems that we have here, which has been installed for over 5 years now, we get an 84% removal of total nitrogen. It's a very passive system. It involves one pump. It has beautiful green grass over the top. At some point, I can show you some pictures of that, or maybe at some point you can come out and visit. Of course, all of you are welcome to get in contact with me if you'd like to actually see the place. We've done some collaboration with Stony Brook University on a couple of these systems. So they actually paid to install a couple of them out here. So that's helped us generate some fantastic data and to look at a couple of different design paradigms as far as different layering techniques or how we set the system up. So there's a lot of promise with that technology because it's non-proprietary. So there isn't that sort of corporate markup that goes with it. And it's also a very sustainable type of project or technology. Like I said, it's a pressure distribution system, so it uses one pump that runs 4 times a day for 1.5 minutes. And it's using a waste product in the sawdust and wood chips that are put down below. So really a win-win type of project there. We're also working with phosphorus. So obviously phosphorus is a bigger concern in our freshwater ponds. About this time of year is when we really start to see a lot of the algae blooms start to come back again, which is, generates a lot of sort of media interest and public interest in addressing the phosphorus loading into our ponds. So septic systems in our particular area are a larger contributor of phosphorus than in some of the other areas of the country where agriculture tends to be the largest contributor. And it's really a long-term sort of contribution. So each septic system on its own doesn't, sort of contribute a lot each year. It's just that it's been, over the course of 50 years as we've had these, 50 years plus as we've had systems right next to ponds that, that slow sort of influx of phosphorus has, grown and it actually settles to the bottom of the pond in the organic matter and gets mixed up on occasion when the weather changes or, when we get heavy rain events, which is why we see those blooms this time of year. So, we need to address the septic systems as the input, as we're also looking at some of the other options for treating phosphorus, that's the phosphorus load that's actually in the pond itself. We need to look at both of those in order to come up with a good solution there. One of the big problems we have as far as removal in septic systems is that there are not many available phosphorus removal technologies approved in Massachusetts. In fact, right now there are only 2 of them. So the phosphorus project itself is a 319 grant we received from Massachusetts DEP, along with a number of donations that we have been promised by technology vendors to install some phosphorus removal systems on the Cape as pilot technologies to be able to sample them and see, sort of how well they actually perform. It not only lets us see what technologies are out there, but hopefully will encourage some other technology vendors to perhaps consider moving into the area to be able to sell their product and sort of expand our phosphorus removable technology toolbox. COVID has made our phosphorus project rather difficult, and people have sort of slowed down a bit with installing septic systems, and some of this grant has involved trainings that have been much more difficult for us to do, and we've been focused mostly on the third project you see there, which is the groundwater separation study. So tonight I'm going to focus mostly on the groundwater separation study, as well as another project with EPA. But there's one other project I want to mention, which I don't have on my slides, is a project with the Barnstable Clean Water Coalition, EPA and USGS, to install up to 20 nitrogen removing septic systems in a neighborhood near Schubel's Pond. There are a lot of septic system or alternative septic systems installed on Cape Cod. So you might ask, well, why is this such a big deal? Why is EPA and USGS involved? Well, the neat thing with this one is that we're installing down gradient monitoring wells around this particular neighborhood. So we will actually be able to see in the groundwater how much impact installing the nitrogen removal systems will have as far as the nitrogen traveling down into the pond. So it's a pretty exciting project. We're really looking forward to it. The Barnstable Clean Water Coalition is a great project partner. They're sort of the lead on this. Z. Crocker has made a lot of headway, and he's been able to get some pretty heavy players involved, particularly EPA and USGS. He's been able to get them to bring a well drilling rig down here from, I think it comes from either Kentucky or Ohio or Indiana, to actually drill those wells. So it's a pretty exciting project. And the other thing that I want to really quickly mention before I dig into the groundwater separation study is we, over the last few years, we've been trying to get the Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs to come down here and see the place. And finally, I succeeded in that effort. And she came down for a visit last week. She was only able to spend an hour with us. She also brought Dan Seeger, who is the Undersecretary of Environmental Affairs. So they were able to come down and see the test center, and I think they enjoyed their visit here and were excited to see some of the work that we're doing. So it was a good visit, and I just wanted to pass that note along to you. So the groundwater separation study itself, so the DEP has been reviewing Title V as part of some of the governor's orders for their agencies to review their regulations. One of the aspects of Title V that was requested to be looked at by the Builders Association was the groundwater separation, which is the distance between the bottom of a leach field and the groundwater. Why do they want DEP to look at that? Because groundwater separation is one of the sort of biggest detriments, I guess you could call it detriment, to developing some of the undeveloped areas around Massachusetts. And it's also responsible for a lot of the mound systems that we've seen go in certain areas. Particularly Provincetown has been one of those areas where historically mound systems were required because groundwater was close to the surface, and we have to keep the bottom of the leach field a certain separation from that groundwater. In sandy soils like we have here on Cape Cod, that separation is 5 feet. In what we call a tighter soil, which is a soil which would have more silt and loamy type material in it, like you'd see more out in the western part of the state, or on some of the moraines on Cape Cod, you would see a 4-foot groundwater separation in those areas. So DEP approached us to do a study to determine if they did actually reduce that separation, if they would still provide adequate public health protection. So what this study will do is monitor 5 indicator organisms as they travel through a variety of depths of sand. So we can figure out what separation is appropriate. So we're going to set up these test columns. There are 35 of these test columns because we're going to be doing each depth in quintuplicate to build a good data set. And we're doing depths from 5 feet, 4 feet, 3 feet, and 2 feet. So we actually end up with 35 test cells that we're building. And I'll show you a picture of what that'll look like in a moment here. The bacterial indicators that we're looking for are Escherichia or E. coli, fecal coliforms, and Enterococcus bacteria. And the viral indicators are MS2 coliphage and somatic coliphage. So they are viruses or phages that infect E. coli bacteria. So they're harmless to you and I, but they are ubiquitous in wastewater because E. coli is ubiquitous in our guts. We all have E. coli in our stomachs and in our intestinal tracts. And as a consequence, MS2 and somatic coliphages are also in our digestive tracts and go out with our waste. So they are a good indicator of possible viral contamination. If you can imagine somebody sick from an enteric virus, they would be, going to the bathroom like anybody does when they're sick with some sort of stomach bug. And that wastewater ends up, in some way, shape, or form ending up in our groundwater. So these viral indicators are very similar to those human viruses. So they turn out to be a pretty good indication of how viruses are attenuated as they travel through the ground into the groundwater. So phase 1 of this project was to set up a new laboratory at the test center to be able to do these analyses. So the virus analyses themselves, our water quality lab doesn't do them and doesn't have the space to be able to do them. They're highly intensive analyses. They're a culture type analysis, but there will be many hours that go into doing these each month because we have to do monthly samples on all of these test cells. We're also going to be doing the bacterial analysis right on site to keep things kind of simple as well. The other option we looked at when we were putting this project together was to have DEP at their state lab do the analysis, but we ran into some trouble with hold times and being able to get the samples up there in time. And I don't think they really had the space for this either. So DEP had enough forethought to give Barnstable County a $200,000 grant to purchase and outfit a new laboratory building here at the test center. So on the left, you can see the brand new building, which has been really my baby over the last 6 months. And then over on the right, you can see a picture of the laboratory itself, the main laboratory portion. We also have a bottle room, a couple storage rooms, a couple offices in here as well, and a sort of shared space in the middle. So this has been a really big project. It's been a lot of fun to work on. It's been a lot of work doing this in the middle of COVID and trying to procure all of this equipment and get things done. But thankfully, Elizabeth has been wonderful in making sure we were able to get approvals to get all of our purchase orders and things in a row. And we had a really good, efficient process worked out for getting all this done. So we've also, so construct the lab. And that lab construction, we finished in about middle of July. And we were, not quite ready for sampling. We had a couple more things to get, chemicals to get. We've still run into some back orders and procurement problems because supply chains have been so disrupted through COVID. So it's, there's been a lot of challenges in getting this done, but we got it here. It's hooked up, it's powered up, and we're just about ready to actually start running samples through here. So it's a pretty exciting time for us. So phase 2 is constructing the test cells. I think I went through most of this information already, but we're looking at 2 different dosing regimes, which are gravity, which is what most people end up with in their backyard. It's just a simple septic tank to leach trench sort of a setup. There's also pressure distribution that we're going to be testing, which is just a different way of sending wastewater out to your leach field. So there's actually a pump involved, which provides better treatment and by dispersing the wastewater over a greater area. So we're going to be testing, as I said, the various depths of those to see sort of which depth is appropriate. The answer might be that, the current depth is appropriate, or it might be that a reduction in that groundwater separation is in order. We won't make that decision. That'll be up to DEP, but we are set on giving them the best information that we can for them to be able to either justify not changing it or justify changing it. So here's a picture of what a couple of the test cells actually look like. The concrete rings with the dirt on the bottom are divided up into 5 individual cells. So there are 7 of these huge concrete rings that get 5 cells each at the various depths, and ring them, which is of course a challenge with COVID and being separated from each other, and not really having a lot of hands out here to be able to help us. We don't have volunteers like we might have in years past. So George and I are doing our best to get this done before the snow flies. It's a lot of work. We have to build all these test cells, fill them all up, build the dosing mechanism that goes on top. And actually, I don't know, I'm sharing my screen right now, so you probably can't see, but I'm building a control panel to go with this whole thing. So it's really a massive project. For this construction of the test cells and the analysis piece, we received another $200,000 increase in our phosphorus grant. It was a modification to an existing grant to be able to pay for both constructing and installing these leach fields, to purchase some of the additional, like the chemicals and sort of consumables for the laboratory, and also to hire a full-time microbiologist to be out here to really run herd to make sure that everything is done lock, stock, and barrel, because this has to be absolutely perfect when it comes to the laboratory analyses. So it was really critical to have somebody looking at it. full-time. So she'll be here for a year plus. She's already here getting things, the equipment dialed in and making sure we have everything in a line so we can start the sampling once the test cells are done, which hopefully will be done in about a month and a half, which is, a lot of work, but very exciting. So yeah, that's just a summary of what I just told you there. The other thing that I wanted to tell you a little bit about is a project we're doing with US EPA, which is a nitrogen sensor challenge. What that is a challenge that was issued by EPA to try to spur development of a low-cost nitrogen sensor package that can be deployed on advanced on-site systems to see how they're really performing in real time. The way those systems are monitored right now, an operator, a person, actually has to go out to those individual systems at least once per year. It might be more, might be 2 to 4 times per year, to do service on the system and take a sample. The sample that's taken then gives them a snapshot in time, but not necessarily good information to be able to adjust the system to make sure it's running a tip-top shape. So the idea here is that you could deploy one of these sensors on the system to actually be able to do that monitoring in real time and provide that operator with information before they go so that they'd be able to affect changes to the system to get better performance out of it. And additionally, regulators would get access to that information so we can make sure from our end that those systems are performing as they should be. So it's kind of a win-win as far as that goes. So there have been a number of teams that have sort of thrown their hats into the ring, everything from universities to private companies. There's been a team from University of Connecticut, one from Stony Brook University, a couple private corporations, one from upstate New York, and then there's been one company actually who came all the way here from Ireland to participate in this challenge. They have to pass a series of increasingly difficult tests where they take their sensor package and actually put it in wastewater here at the test center. We take lab samples that are used to verify that their sensor data is correct. And at this point, we're moving on to the 6-month challenge with the single sensor who actually passed all of the other challenges. That sensor package was developed down at Stony Brook University, and we will be hopefully starting that test about the middle to end of October, and that'll run 6 months out here. The winner of that challenge receives ISO certification and an order of up to 200 units. I believe it's 200 units from the Nature Conservancy and a number of other donors to be able to deploy them. I think at this point, most of those 200 units will end up down on Long Island because they seem to have a lot of political pull down there right now. But I could see a scenario where we're able to actually get some of those up here in the future to be able to deploy them on systems actually on Cape Cod. So what are we doing at Test Center? Designed and built the testing apparatus. We're providing the challenge water or wastewater because we have loads of it. Anybody who's been here knows we have loads of wastewater around here. It's the one thing we definitely have. We're going to be doing the sampling and field measurements, and then we provide some general technical support to EPA and the challenge participants as well. So this whole thing is set up in a little trailer that's out right next to this new laboratory building. You can see the test vessel over in the corner, and you can actually see some of the units. This is from the 1-month test that we did a couple months back. So they actually take their inputs and put them in that test vessel, and we put the treated or untreated wastewater in there, and then their units process the wastewater, do the analyses. We take our samples, and then in the end, the TEL Labs does the comparison between the two, and a winner gets announced. So that's a pretty exciting project that we don't usually get an opportunity to talk about when we get to give a presentation to you folks. So I wanted to give you a little update on that. So that's my whole presentation. Obviously, I have a load more that I could talk about, and I could talk your ears off this evening, but I won't. I wanted to leave a few minutes for questions if anybody has any. So yeah.
Well, thank you very much. And I think going forward in the future, when COVID restrictions ease up, I think the delegates will be interested in perhaps doing a field trip to the test site perhaps we'll arrange one for the assembly or individually, but I wanted to know if any of the delegates had any questions. Okay, Delegate Brown.
Hi, Brian. I wonder if you could tell us the timeline on that non-proprietary layer cake. How far into the 5-year testing are we now?
So George has been sort of, he really started messing with this technology probably 5 to 6 years ago and doing sort of increasing difficulty as far as the testing goes. There are some unanswered questions with this technology. We want to make sure that it can really, run in the long haul to make sure that, the wood chips that we're putting down there as a carbon source for the bacteria is actually able to persist over a long period of time. That's been one of the questions we've had is there enough carbon to actually make this work over, a 20 or 30 year period? That's one of the pieces that we're looking at. The other is, looking at the sort of variety of testing or design paradigms that we can use with this, whether that's a saturated type of system where we hold saturation in the field, or an unsaturated, which would be kind of like a bottomless sand filter sort of a scenario, to try to work out what the best way of doing this is. So, as we've said all along, and as George has said all along, we are cautiously optimistic about it. But it definitely is a technology that holds a lot of promise. And, we've started to expand it a bit beyond the test center. We received a grant a few years back from EPA to actually install 12 of these systems at homes to see how they do in the real world, because the test center here, we give those systems full design load every day of the year. So we wanted to make sure under a more variable load in a home that they'd still be able to perform. So we've been doing that work with that EPA grant to make sure the systems still perform as well out in the field. And we've, discovered a few things along the way, things that work, things that don't work. Hopefully by the end of the grant, we'll be able to say, whether these can really work in homes or not. For me, I think they definitely do hold some great promise for homes. I think it's a non-proprietary technology, so anybody could really take the idea and do it. There are some other parts of the Commonwealth where folks have sort of latched onto the idea and have tried to install them. Certainly in other parts of the country as well. The Rhode Island is looking at actually creating a regulation which would allow this sort of installation paradigm by default. Connecticut recently revised their regulations to allow layering of organic material into the system. So, really, it's sort of proving that the technology works to DEP so that they'll give this more of a generalized, generic approval so that anybody can take it and run with it is kind of where we're at with it. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. I see several hands up, so I'm just going to go in the order I saw them. I saw Delegate Chafee, and then Green, and then Harder. Delegate Chafee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Brian, thank you for the presentation and for being here. As a former member of the Brewster Board of Health, who spent a lot of time dealing with septic variants and septic systems, I know the great value that this test center provides to Barnstable County. And I want to back up just a little bit, because the problem that you're dealing with is so important. And while I love the science and getting down in the weeds of the nitty gritty, I think it's important to kind of go back and think that the average human creates about 2 gallons of urine a day, and on average has 1 bowel movement.
Yep.
Each of us every day. The population on the Cape, I think, is 212,000.
Yep.
And then add on that the burden of the visitors who come to the Cape in the summer. And all of a sudden, in very simple terms, you see the pressure, the environmental pressure that Cape Cod has to deal with human waste. And very little of the Cape is sewered. So on-site septic systems, which is what you're testing and what most Cape businesses and homes have, to protect us from the risks in human waste, protect our drinking water, protect the water that we swim in, and and fish in and maintain businesses in. This septic system test center is an absolute gem because you're one of the only places that is building science. And when we look at what local boards of health on the Cape have to do every single week, which is make tough decisions and sometimes ask homeowners and businesses to do really expensive actions with their septic system, we have to have the science to provide a rationale to homeowners and businesses for why they need to take certain action or perhaps install an innovative system, which is even more expensive than a standard Title V. So you and George Hufelder have broadened our knowledge of the biology, the chemistry, and the overall function of septic systems. And you've protected the Cape's environment and water quality. And we are all beneficiaries of the research that goes on very quietly at the center. The specific question I have for you is about the groundwater study that you mentioned. I was so glad to see a study being undertaken to take a look at the sufficiency of the distance between the bottom of a septic system, where that human waste is filtering down, and the groundwater below it. But I was surprised you weren't looking at actually extending it. Is sea level rise being considered in the design of this study?
So first of all, thank you very much for the very kind comments at the beginning. Working out here at the test center is like, it's, I don't want to call it a dream because I didn't dream about it as a child, but I'm so glad that, I've gotten the opportunity to work here. It's really exciting work. And I call this my 2 acres of heaven out here because I get to come here and work on what's really such a prescient problem, not just for the Cape, but really worldwide. To sort of answer your question, so we really haven't looked yet at the sea level rise sort of aspect of this. One of the great things about what we're setting up here is, we're trying to build this so that it's not just a one-off, so that we can, in the future, reconfigure these test cells to look at a whole host of different things. And groundwater, sea level rise has been one of the things that we've sort of discussed as a possibility for what we could do. We want to look at contaminants of emerging concern, which is, to me, almost more insidious than nitrogen and phosphorus. That's the the stuff we use in the shower and send down the drain every day that we don't really think about at all the medications that we take and only partially digest and use, that goes right down the drain and into our groundwater. This is a perfect situation to be able to look at CEC removal through various depths of sand to provide more information to that end. Also looking at phosphorus removal. So there's a whole host of projects that we can do with these test cells, and certainly groundwater, sea level rise is on that sort of short list of what we want to do in the future. I think DEP, in setting up this study, was trying to answer the immediate question, which was, could the separation be reduced from what it is? So that's why we started at what it is currently, because it's assumed that what it is currently is adequate. And I think we will find that that is probably the case. But we have to sort of go through and answer the question as to whether a lesser separation would provide that same amount of treatment, I guess. So that's how the study was set up. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Delegate Green.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Brian, for your excellent presentation and all the important work you're doing for all of us. I agree with Delegate Chafee, very well stated, singing your praises. I had 2 questions. One, as you said, the layer approach, I've been following for a while, as you all have. And as you said, Suffolk County in New York is going to be using it. There are other places that are. Is there a timeline or a guesstimate timeline where perhaps Barnstable County can start implementing this?
So really that depends on DEP and how we could move this through the approval process. So it's still a technology that has to go through the same sort of process that any commercial technology would have to, which is it's sort of a stepwise approval process where the technology starts out at what's called pilot, where you can install a few of them and see how they do, and if it proves that you can at least do as well as a standard system, then they'll let you move to the next round of the sort of approval process, which is called provisional. And that lets you install about 50 systems. And then we take that group of 50 to see how well that performs. And if it's up to snuff, then you can move on to the remedial, which is a situation where it might be an installed house and they're doing some modifications or a system fails. So you would use a remedial type approval system, or a general approval, which is for new construction types of scenarios. Right now, this technology itself in that approval process is in the pilot process because we've got less than 12. So we're demonstrating to DEP that it at least protects the public health and the environment to the degree that a standard Title V system would. And then we would hopefully be able to move this to provisional. So the trick in this is that because it's a non-proprietary technology, which is great because anybody could pick it up and do it, is also a little bit of a double-edged sword because DEP, we don't have the funding really to necessarily move it through as quickly as a company might be able to. So we're progressing through that. There have been a couple of spin-off technologies involving wood chips that show some great promise. There's I don't know if any folks have heard about this company. They're called Clean2 Systems. They basically invented the technology based on some of the paradigms that have been developed here with the wood chips. And he's been able to now commercialize that product and install it in the area. He's located out on Martha's Vineyard, and he's done installations on the vineyard and on the Cape. He's at the provisional use step in the process. So the timeline it's really hard to pin down as to where it could be. I mean, if somebody wanted to take it and really push it along, it could be, really tomorrow you could embark on that process. Our job is to test it and see if it works. And at some point, somebody else is going to have to sort of take the banner up and run with it a bit to get these really installed in greater numbers.
Well, thank you for trying to answer that question. The other question I had is, on a kind of a frivolous note, I watch Netflix a lot when I cook, and I saw this series called Inside Bill's Brain, Decoding Bill Gates. And it's a mini series. And I don't know if you've seen it, but one of them talks about this technology about a series of toilets that he's creating in underdeveloped areas, mostly for places in Africa and in India. And I'm wondering, have you looked at that? Have you seen that? Is that anything in our future where you might be testing something like that?
So I have heard about that project. It is a pretty neat project. I understand it was a couple of few college students that put together the sort of winning prototype in that challenge that the Gates Foundation issued. Certainly, the Gates have been involved in a lot of really good philanthropic projects over the year, and that's certainly the composting toilet project has been one of them. The test center, I mean, we haven't looked here physically on site a whole lot at composting toilets because there are some complexities with being able to do that. Number one, we only have about 4 staff, and it's kind of hard to produce enough waste for us to be able to test them here. I eat a lot of mini wheats in the morning, but I don't know. I don't know if we could really produce enough here. But we are starting in the initial stages of working on a project with a joint project with Katuit Solar, and I forget the name of the other organization. It'll come to me in a moment, where they want to look at perhaps ways to reuse the urine from urine separation toilets. So the great thing about urine separation toilets is you never mix that huge slug of nitrogen, which most of it's in the urine, with the solid matter. So it's a little bit easier to handle and treat separately from the solid waste. So they want to look at whether they could land apply this safely. So the idea is we're going to set up test cells. Of course, that's what we do. We set up test cells for things, and use a variety of sort of dosing methods and plants and things on top to see what treatments are the best for the urine. As far as it can be a fertilizer and can help sort of water your plants at the same time.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think Delegate Harder, had you had your hand up?
Speaker. Oops. All right. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Brian, I'm sorry. I'm just learning all these things. The a regular, you get 84% removal from the layer cake. What is what percentage does a regular septic system remove?
A regular system will get you right around 30 to 35% at the most.
And are the existing Title V septic systems would they be able to be retrofitted with the layer cake system, or would you have to redo the entire system?
So unfortunately, you would really have to redo the entire system because you're replacing the leach field. And in addition, you'd be putting in a pump chamber to go along with it. So out of your septic tank, you would have a separate chamber, which we call a pump chamber, where it sort of reserves some of the liquid coming out of the septic tank. And then that gets sent to the leach field. So yeah, it's not really a retrofit type of a situation with the layer cakes, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you.
Delegate O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Mr. Baumgartel, I'm very appreciative of the presentation. This is clearly an issue of great concern on the Cape, given our single source aquifer. However, I want to address the groundwater separation study. I am concerned that this is a study that can only produce outcomes in one direction, that is favorable to developers of land that is currently not usable. We are assuming that the current separation, 5 feet as the standard, is adequate. Frankly, that's based on really, really old science. And it seems to me that without at least a test cell that gives, let's say, a 10-foot separation, we don't know that what we're doing is adequate. Clearly, if your data becomes evident that 3 feet is not as good as 4, is not as good as 5, then we need to go in the direction of, do we need 6, 7, 8, 10? That's right. Important. I also want to comment that one of the emerging real concerns has to be, in terms of enteric pathogens, is the COVID virus. We know it's an enteric pathogen. We know it's long lasting, and it's probably going to be of greater concern than any of the enteric viral pathogens that we routinely deal with. I don't know what to say. I mean, clearly that's not exactly a question. It's an observation of what I think is fundamentally a kind of a flawed study on the part of DEP, where there's only one outcome possible. Lessen the regulations or leave them alone.
Right. And I think, perhaps the study could inform further research into this area. Part of the reason for the 5 foot being the deepest depth beyond what it, being what it currently is partially because of practical considerations. 6 feet, 7 feet, 10 feet, and that's a deep hole for us to dig. And you saw the concrete that we're working in. It's I don't want to call it scary to be down there, because it's not really that scary. But being down 10 feet doing that, I'd be pretty nervous doing that work down that far. So there are some practical limitations on what we could do. Certainly with funding, and a really good excavator operator, and if we dug up half the test center, we could dig a really deep hole to do the deep ones. But I think, at a minimum, we'll discover whether or not 5 feet is adequate. And if we find out that 5 feet doesn't give us, the treatment that we're looking for, then that might be the point at which we say, okay, well, now let's look at 6 feet, 7 feet, 8 feet to see really what that, the proper separation would be. As for the COVID thing, so of course, COVID is top on everybody's minds, and it's something really of concern for me because we worked with wastewater, and it's been shown to be in wastewater, just to keep my staff safe as we work with it, because we do work with raw wastewater, coming right from people's homes out here. So there isn't a whole lot of evidence at this point, anyway, that there's a high rate of transmission from wastewater to a person or a high infectious rate in that particular scenario.
Great.
If you're taking proper precautions, which we do, which is wear gloves whenever we're in contact with wastewater, wear protective eyewear when necessary, generally try to keep ourselves out of it as much as we can, not unnecessarily, working with it if we don't have to. There have been a couple of companies who have actually are developing ways to look at wastewater as a means epidemiologically to look at wastewater to see sort of what your coronavirus in a load is in an area. And we've actually had a couple of those companies come out here to the test center to get their wastewater to do that testing. There have been 3 different companies actually that have done it. There's an MIT team, which was one of the first in the state to look at doing it by PCR analysis, to look at the DNA or coronavirus, I believe is an RNA virus. Look at the RNA to see how much, coronavirus load there is. There's another company that is actually looking at being able to amplify and look at the protein shell to detect COVID rather than looking at the DNA itself. And they've been able to successfully do that. And then the third company is looking at ways to manufacture surfaces which are actually resistant to really any virus, but COVID, particularly. So the result of those analyses that they've done, and they've shared that data with us, is that there is COVID in our wastewater here at the test center. So it's definitely here, and the source for the wastewater here is Coast Guard housing in the jail. So it's almost certainly there all the time, and we take the proper precautions for it. The nice thing about the study we're doing is that, as I understand it, and I'm not a virologist, I'm an amateur virologist. I've read as much about it as I can, but not trained in it, that the indicators that we're using are very similar to human viruses in their ability to adhere to soil particles, and also the degradation as they travel through the sand column. There's some predation there. They're just really not favorable conditions. It's not warm like a human body is. Which really, that warmth, heat is really what encourages bacterial growth, and of course, by proxy, contributes to viral growth as well. So, so COVID is definitely on everybody's minds. DEP will be taking additional samples as we are doing our analysis to look at human pathogens. And before COVID, because we started this before COVID, they were going to be looking at, the adenoviruses, the retroviruses, the types of things that people pass through their anal pores. I don't know if they plan on looking at COVID at this point, but I'm sure they probably will.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I see Delegate O'Hara. Hold on.
There I am. I'm on. So, Brian, thanks for being here. I've been following this for a while.
Yep.
And I find your information to be amazing and encouraging at the same time. I know I had heard about this 84% on the system that you have currently up and running. And one of my questions would be, what does a wastewater treatment plant pass out at the end result? What do their numbers show? And then secondly to that, if this were to go, it seems to be moving very quickly, and hopefully it will. Do you think it would be a replacement for the wastewater treatment systems that we're currently looking at in all of our communities? It seems to me as though the numbers are very good. It might be far less costly overall to the residents of Cape Cod. I guess I'll let you answer that. And again, I want to thank you. I really do find your work very interesting, and I'm very interested, very, very interested.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So treatment plants, it varies. They typically get somewhere from 95 to 97% removal. So it's the kind of gold standard that's out there, which is why we tend to look to treatment plants to solve our problem. But I think, these systems definitely have some potential to offset some of that treatment need. If you were able to deploy these at a cheaper cost in certain areas, perhaps you could, do it at a cost savings over a treatment plant. And it certainly depends on density, housing density. In areas where you've got quarter-acre lots, certainly it makes sense to sewer if you can. But if you've got, certain areas like in Mashpee, we have some bigger lots in Mashpee, some half-acre and larger lots. There are some areas in Brewster that are fairly sparsely populated, certainly on the Outer Cape. And really, they're spread all over the place, where I think, the layer cake paradigm could be a great way to offset some of that wastewater treatment plant capacity requirement.
Thank you very much. I don't see any. I'm going to just shift the screen. Patrick, you're all set. Okay. Patrick, for some reason, you're on the other screen. Patrick, would you say something? And then it will move you onto the main screen. Hold on. Unmute yourself. Can you?
Hi.
Okay. I don't know if that'll move you onto the other screen.
Well, thank you for having me on the main screen, and let's continue our discussion. Looks like we have a lot of public comment.
Yeah.
It looks like Doug wanted to say something.
Oh, I'm sorry. I did not see that. Thank you, Elizabeth. Doug, did you have another question?
I was just going to ask, how soon do you think you'll be setting up to test for phosphorus removal?
So we're at this point, we're pretty far behind in getting that done. We have a lot of preliminary work that, COVID has definitely thrown into disarray, and this virus project has really taken precedence for us in the last 6 months. We've also had some staffing issues out here. We're actually short a person right now, and we have been for most of this year thus far, with somebody having some health issues and being in and out. We've had some challenges that have definitely slowed down our ability to do that grant, to get those in the ground. But I think once we can get a person on board to take that spot that's empty right now, and to, pardon me, sorry for that. And once we get this virus project, or at least the bulk of the work behind us, then we'll be able to shift our focus back to, some of these other projects that we have. Could always use more help.
Okay, that's good enough for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to move forward. We have more, but I wanted to thank you, Brian. There are times when we have county employees come in and present their work and give us presentations, and it's amazing what's going on in the county that we have been informed of over the years, but also how, you're a world-renowned test center, how much you are doing the county proud, and how grateful we are that we have the quality of work that is going on in Barnstable County. And thank you so much. And we will potentially have you back, especially if there's interest for more information or other septic options. But thank you so much.
Absolutely happy to. And thank you all for the very kind comments.
Yeah, thank you. Our next item is a public hearing on 2 proposed ordinances. One is 20-18, which is the FY dredge budget supplemental appropriation, and the ordinance 20-19, which is the county budget supplemental appropriation. We have a lot of new faces. So how this works is this is a public hearing, and it is a time to comment on these specific ordinances. After we complete the presentations and the question answer and any public comments on the ordinances, then we will go on to communications from public officials and then communications from the public. So it's after this, if you don't have anything specific to say about these ordinances. So we're going to start with, it's one public hearing for all the ordinances. We kind of lumped them into one, but we're going to start with the dredge supplemental appropriation. And I don't know, is Elizabeth or Jack, who is going to do the presentation on that? Or is Phil here? Who's doing the presentation on this?
Well, I can do it. I don't know who's left. This is,
Elizabeth's still here
oh,
too.
Elizabeth's still, great,
Yeah.
good. Yeah, this is a request from the Dredge Department to transfer money from the Dredge Reserve Fund into the Dredge operating budget. For, as you know, we, in the process of reorganizing, we hired a new Dredge director, Dredge superintendent director, and then of course we hired the new employees, and we are under budgeted in the FY21 budget. We under budgeted for these two positions. So this will be the supplemental appropriation that would cover us from those wage and salary obligations. And then again, that comes from the Dredge Reserve Fund. I should let you know, as part of this, the reason for the extra hiring was to get the second crew up and running. And literally next Monday, they'll be starting in two places. They'll be starting, one crew will be working Sampson's Island and Barnstable, and the second crew will be in Bass River. So it's working out great. And this is
Thank
what
you.
the request is about.
Any questions from the Assembly on the background information on this request? Yes, Delegate Killian.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. Yeah, Mr. Units, you mentioned about extra hiring, and I guess I'm unclear. Do we add employees, or is this just different employees at different rates?
No, we added the Dredge superintendent.
Yep, I understand.
And then we added two new employees to one of the Dredge crews, and we had under budgeted for those. When the applications came in, we realized that we had to increase those salaries a little bit. And
Jack, I'd like to add, Elizabeth Braccia, Finance
Yes.
Director. I want to add to that. There were a couple of open positions, Mr. Killian, that we did not fill. So this is kind of a reclassifying a couple of positions, not filling another position. So we only needed to add 65,000 for the director, and this includes, we looked at everything from wages to group insurance and stuff. So this is only 65 against what would have been a lot more.
Right.
Okay. Just as a note, usually when these come up, there's more detail involved as to what this is going to, where it's coming from. So is this the fact that we didn't budget enough for the new director's position, or we didn't budget enough for the new employees, or is it a combination of both?
We didn't budget at all for the new director position because we didn't know at the time when we set the budget that we would be doing that. So it's a combination of all of it. I wouldn't say we didn't budget enough. We just didn't know that we were going to be going this direction at the time we set that budget. And it is coming from the reserve. And I can tell you the reserve balance at the end of fiscal year 20 was about 8.9 million.
But I thought when we were working on this budget, we were already having discussions about a new director or a new superintendent.
It wasn't included as a new position in there.
And you say that this is coming from the stabilization fund as an enterprise account. Does the Dredge, how does the coming from the county stabilization fund impact the enterprise setup of the Dredge?
It actually, it's coming from the Dredge reserve. It's an enterprise fund,
okay.
So it keeps its fund. It keeps its money in this fund. So
okay, so it's not the Dredge reserve that has 8.9 million.
It is. The county has. I'm sorry, 890,000. The county has a.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yes. That's why I was confused. I was either the county or the Dredge.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else on this particular ordinance? Okay.
Move approval.
Yes, Delegate O'Malley.
Move approval of proposed ordinance.
No, we will vote when we're in session.
This is the public hearing.
This is just the public hearing. Yep. No, I would like to do that too. It's okay, but we gotta wait. So is there any comment from the public on the ordinance for the Dredge? And I'm looking to see, I don't see anyone who wants to speak on the Dredge appropriation. Okay, the next, I'm going to try and move these along. The next proposed ordinance is 20-19, and this has, I think, 4 sections to it. I have them separated. Yes, 4 sections. The first section is funding of $150,000 for the emergency management account. And this is to establish an emergency management account. Is that true, Elizabeth?
It was actually to add to the one we established last spring for 250,000.
Okay, was that general emergency or was that specifically COVID?
It was general emergency, but most of it happened to go to COVID. So we're coming into a hurricane season in winter. We thought since there's 110,000 left in that other fund, we, working with Sean, came up with 150 to add to 150 to it to get us through this next section of
What do we typically, had we just established that fund with COVID? We didn't have an emergency fund?
We did not have it funded at the time. It's an emergency fund that money had come in from other sources, but we added to it for overall emergencies, and then COVID happened.
Thank you. Any questions from any of the delegates? Delegate Killian?
Yeah, so just to back what you said, is this, how long have we had this fund and what has been the typical balance we've started and ended with?
We started at 250,000. I believe it was last winter that we voted it at the end of the winter. And we put it in place, and then, obviously the COVID came into play, and we used a portion of it for that. There's about 110 left of that initial appropriation.
So is it anticipated that we need to boost it back up for what purpose? Is it for COVID, or you just mentioned coming into hurricane season, but what, since we've
it's for any emergency that we might encounter that could be snowstorm, blizzards, hurricanes, and COVID. So it's just an all-encompassing emergency fund.
But since we've never had this fund before, how do we know what we should keep in it and what it would be used for?
That would probably be better answered by Sean, who oversees the fund. Unless Jack wants to jump in on that, we use it for any emergency that might come up. When we run the MAC for any kind of outage across Cape Cod, I know that they provide food for the workers. They different kinds of help throughout the county.
Yeah, in the past, we had done it with credit cards and fingers crossed. With the COVID complicating things, especially in terms of sheltering, if sheltering becomes a mandate, we knew we needed to have a little more stabilization there. In addition to that, things like the vaccination programs that we're about to start through the nursing service, that's a precursor to the COVID vaccine coming out sometime towards the end of the year. When we have that drive-through vaccination clinic on the 26th, we will be test running how we'll handle the vaccination deployment on Cape Cod through the nursing organization. So the third part about that is, of course, we don't know what's going to come down the pike in the fall. So we wanted to be sure that we had money there in case we have to ask quickly. And that's why we're asking to raise it back to 250.
And this is Elizabeth again. I'd like to add that we will be putting in to FEMA for some reimbursement of this. It was a way to separate a lot of the charges for all of this emergency as well.
I have a question for Jack. Jack, will the nurses be covered by this 150,000?
The nurses will probably begin it, as part of this 250,000, absolutely. Because we haven't, to the best of my knowledge, we haven't filed a separate line item for that yet. And Sean's estimate was about 150,000.
So you think the nurses may be covered by this?
Right. Okay. Sean is unfortunately unavailable.
Okay, this would be the account then you would anticipate covering those if they're approved.
Right.
Actually, Jack, sorry, I'm gonna
yes, Elizabeth.
Contrary, we actually did vote at the commissioners meeting. It will be coming to your next.
That's right. It's coming. That's right. Next meeting.
We did put in an appropriation for the nurses that's separate from this. This is specifically for that emergency fund to cover any unexpected emergencies that we might encounter this fall, winter, and into the spring. And we may not, so it will sit there for any future emergency needs.
All right. Yes, Delegate Oman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So this 250,000, we've spent 140,000. I'm sure it's well accounted for, but I have not seen it yet, how it was expended. I'd like to know that. the general nature of the spending so far. But is this only under the auspices of Director Sean O'Brien? Does it have to be approved by the commissioners, or is he just in charge of this $250,000 to approve it, to spend it as he feels necessary? Thank you.
Yeah, we can get that to you. Most of the money was spent on PPE, distributing equipment and necessary products to the towns. It was also used, I believe, Elizabeth, was it not, to fund the health guidance officers for the towns?
Yeah, well, we used it for some additional hours in the nursing department.
Right.
Where they were helping out as well.
Okay, thank you. Anyone?
We can get you that, absolutely.
Anyone else? Delegate Killian.
Just to clarify what Mr. Yunus just said, so some of that funds was used to pay the health guidance officers. Were these the folks who were hired to do inspections and that type of thing?
That's right.
Okay.
Yes.
Are we going to get an update on them today too?
Oh, well, Erica Woods did.
She did earlier. Yep.
Yeah, she did earlier.
That program closes out
in September.
At the end of next week.
Yeah, it's done in a week. But you're right. I think we can ask for along with the rest of the emergency funds, just an accounting of how the money was spent.
Yep.
Anyone? John, your hand isn't up. You're just touching your head. Okay. Okay, I see no one else from the delegation. Anyone in the public want to comment on, well, wait a minute, there's 4 sections to this. So let's just go through the 4 sections and then we'll take public comment on any of the 4 sections. The next section is the hiring of the director for, is this for the food access coordinator?
Exactly, yep.
Okay, and this is, I should mention the amount so people know what I'm talking about. This is wages just for the remainder of the fiscal year, which goes to the end of June, of $63,000, employee benefits of $21,750, and Medicare for $910, which is a total of $85,660. And we got a job description, which I'm not sure if the public has had an opportunity to look at, but also we would like to hear just a little bit more about the plans for the money in Section 2. Is that going to be Jack or Elizabeth, or who would cover that?
I know Mike McGuire was on the call earlier. If he's not here, I could do it.
No, I didn't see him at all.
Okay. Yeah, the food specialist position came up. It was generated by a concern that was raised by a number of fire departments back about a month and a half ago when Sandwich, at one of the schools in Sandwich, they hosted, they were gifted with a ton of dairy foods. And they put out the word that they were going to be giving away cheeses and eggs and so on and so forth. The line backed up all the way to Mashpee. And a lot of people got nothing. Nobody got enough to live on. And it became quite obvious to at that point in time that the coordinating food pantries and food distribution centers across Cape Cod was not being done. So we all agreed, and a lot of the input came from Beth Albert from Human Services. We all agreed that this is one of those roles that the county should be playing. Food pantries are besieged right now, and it's only going to get worse if the restaurants start to shut down. So we're seeing people, by the way, in lines that we had never seen before. And there are thousands of them. So this is what the role of this person will be: to organize all the food pantries, organize all the food distribution suits, work with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the food banks in Boston that send the foods out, to make sure that it's coordinated and getting to as many people as possible. I think we envisioned this about an 18-month position, assuming the recession would continue on for a while. So that's what Mike has asked for.
Any questions on this from any of the delegates? Yes, Delegate Harder.
Thanks, Madam Speaker. Jack, why the 18 months? I assume we can extend that if we need to?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It could. Yeah. If it needs to become, I can tell you too that the government issued a map last week, and we were shocked, particularly in the Outer Cape, of the number of red spots that popped up. The red spots mean people that need food quickly. This was brought out by DPH, but it was all around the Hyannis and Sandwich area as well. So this is a widespread need for getting food on the street quick. It's not just Hyannis. It's all over the Cape, and especially in the Outer Cape.
Yeah, it's bad right now, and it's going to get worse. So I hope 18 months will be enough, but I don't think so, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yep. And we can
Jack,
always revisit. Go ahead.
Who wrote the job description?
Justina and Mike's staff, who work in the food pantries. Kim, and I'm not sure who else was involved with it. But they put a lot of time and effort into it. We had 8 resumes that are moving forward. And we'll start the interview as soon as, assuming this ordinance gets passed tonight, we'll start the interviewing as soon as Friday.
Okay. I think it struck me that it was a good salary and that there would be a lot of competition for the position, or it would be an appealing job for someone who was interested in working in this area.
Right.
That's it for the delegates. Oh, Delegate Oman.
Thank you again, Madam Speaker. So this $85,660 is just for the next 9 months. That funding ends on June 30th, 2021. And if we want to continue this for another 9 months or more, it'll be budgeted in the 2022 budget. I just want to be clear about that.
You'll be dealing with this again in February when the budget gets over to the Assembly.
So I would agree with Ms. McAuliffe that that's a fine salary for 9 months or less. I hope you get a good person, and I hope it's worth it.
Remember, you have to budget high because of insurance obligations. Maybe they'll come in with their own insurance or their husband's insurance, and we can drop that number down. But that's a big part of this budget.
Delegate Princey.
Just a quick question regarding the description in itself, and also the length of the possible length and possibility that if things turn out better than expected in the future, and the economy is booming and the unemployment rate goes back down and people do have work and food and the position isn't necessary, is that another permanent position in the Human Service Department, or could it be
Yeah, it would absolutely. The 2 nurses positions that we're going to be asking for in this position are all earmarked for 18 months. That gives the applicant notice that they're going to end. And if they have to be eliminated because of budget challenges that the county faces going forward, and again, we don't know if the registry successes that we've seen in the last 3 months are going to continue much longer. But if we get fiscally challenged, these employees know that their position is limited. It has a sunset clause. And they also know that if money gets tight, they would have to go. So.
Okay. The third item, the 4-item ordinance is the, $63,637.
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see your hand. I'm sorry, Delegate O'Malley. Go ahead. On the food coordinator, director.
But on the food coordinator, I want to speak highly in support of this. As you know, Madam Speaker, as a member of the Kelly Foundation Board, we see food pantries and food service organizations coming into us reporting that year after year, these last few, they've been having greater than 10% increases per year in the volume of people they serve. They're under strain. They're really working at it. So I am real proud of the county stepping up to do some coordination work for this. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. The third item, as I said, is the fire training equipment for $63,637. Jack or Elizabeth, who's going to give us the background on that?
Yeah, once again, this is a grant that we got through, I believe it was the Seaport Council. It might have been FEMA, but it was in partnership with the town of Provincetown to create a burn building, to actually purchase a burn building, which we're in the process of closing on now. And this $63,000 would allow us to go out to RFP on that and get the burn building in here quickly. We do have sites for this burn building. It will not be in P-Town, but there are a number of sites that we can we can have to erect this burn building. I should remind everybody that we don't use anything in our props right now that's anything but propane gas and water. So there's no environmental concerns that are raised by any of these structures. The burn building is intended particularly to keep people like the Provincetown Fire Department that are volunteers, Truro that has volunteers, to keep them trained. It's strongly supported by all the communities on Cape Cod. The fire department, that is.
Any questions from the delegates? All right, and then the final item in this ordinance is the solid waste recycling study for $150,000.
I think there's probably so little I have to say on this because Carrie Parcells did an incredible job explaining to you what this program was all about a couple weeks ago.
Right.
And that's to fund the RFP so that we can bring in these consultants to tell us how to get it to the next level.
Any questions on that? All right, now in terms of the ordinances, is there anyone in the public who wanted to address any of these ordinances? Kara Duff. I'm trying to unmute you, but it's okay, there you go.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Just wanted to just bring up 2 points. One, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. One, I wear hearing aids and it's really difficult to follow the meetings when people don't have their cameras on because I use facial expressions as well as sound. So Jack, I'm missing like basically a lot of what you're saying.
Sorry, I didn't know it was off.
The second thing is, as far as the food coordinator goes, I think it's a really wonderful idea. I worked for We Can for many years, and right before my position was eliminated as a result of COVID, we were getting calls of people who were hungry, and it wasn't that the food pantries didn't have food, but people didn't have transportation. So I hope that will be a component of this new job that you're creating, is to literally bring the food to the people.
I think the coordinator is a problem solver, networker, how to get everybody to work together. So I think that the county is going forward with this position to look at problems such as you mentioned. Jack, do you have your picture on now?
Let me, I just found it. Okay. It should be all set.
Okay.
And Carrie,
Okay.
you make a great point on the transportation. We have to get the food to the people that need it the most. And that will be a big role that this person will play.
Okay, and then anyone else from the public had a comment on any of these ordinances from that we just addressed? All right, so what happens now? Oh yes, Daniel Gessen. I'm trying to unmute you, but I can't. Can you unmute yourself? Okay.
Yep. All set. There wasn't there weren't many questions asked about the burn trailer that was proposed. However, just as someone who's been trained as a firefighter on a volunteer basis, I wanted to stress my support for it. I think there's very, very, very few things that are able to prepare volunteer firefighters who get a lot less training than professional career firefighters. There's very, very few experiences that can prepare a person for a fire and understanding how they work and the science behind them as well as a burn trailer can. So I just wanted to.
That's great. Thank you. And I'm looking at I'm going back and forth between screens. I don't see anyone else who's raised a hand. Oh, excuse me. I don't think anyone else has raised a hand. All right, so what happens now is I will close this public hearing. When the assembly convenes, after we conduct the public part of our meeting, then we vote on these ordinances. So that'll be shortly. The next item is the communications from public officials. Is there anyone from the public who's a public official who wants to address? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone. All right, the next item is the
Elizabeth.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Brachia, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Elizabeth. I didn't see any hands. Sorry.
That's okay. I would just like to let you all know before you do vote on those ordinances, I always think it's a good idea to know what's the balance of the fund that you're voting this money from. We're about 10.5 million in an unreserved fund balance. So just so you know, there's plenty of funds there to move forward on these ordinances. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And for the people who aren't really aware or missed it, we are funded by primarily by deeds, real estate taxes, and this is a reflection. Our healthy balance is a reflection of the real estate market and the houses that have been selling. Okay, the next item is communications from members of the public. We have a very large group. I'm not sure exactly how many want to speak. I've only had 5 or 6 people contact me that they wanted to speak, but I want to make sure that people who want to speak can get a chance. So what I'd like to do in this portion then is to allow people 2 minutes to speak. And then I will go through, and just bear with me because I'm doing lots of screens, and please, if you want to be recognized, put your hand up, and then I will, and obviously if I'm missing someone, someone can get my attention that way. In terms of the public comment, it is one person at a time. And when you are called on, I see your name, I will say your name. So you don't necessarily have to identify yourself. Usually if I don't know your name, that would be the case. I see Judith Thomas. I think, yeah, there you go. You're unmuted. Judith?
Thank you, Madam Speaker and delegates. I am a member of the Interfaith Justice Committee of the Federated Church of Orleans and Am Hayam Havara. And I believe you've all received a communication from us that was probably in your packet, but I do want to read that. So we, as the members of that committee, write to address the incident involving Muska Yusuf and Danielle Toby at the September 2nd meeting. We believe the speaker treated these 2 women of color who were attempting to address the assembly during the comment period in a manner that was very unfortunate and unwise, given the current climate which exists in our nation. We are disappointed that few efforts were made by other delegates to support them. As you are undoubtedly aware, the people's trust of authority and leadership at every level of government is at an all-time low. In the September 2nd incident, the treatment of these 2 women speaks volumes to the communities of color which they represent, as well as to all residents of Barnstable County. While discrimination may not have been a factor in the response of the speaker to the public commenters in this incident, there is, in our nation, especially among persons of color, a much heightened awareness to a lack of full inclusion, respect, and privilege. The exclusion of these 2 persons from the meeting seems to us to have been particularly unwise. We ask how much better it might have been for everyone involved had the 2 been guided by the speaker to present their concerns to the assembly in a manner that would have been acceptable to her. We believe Muska and Danielle deserved a further opportunity. While the speaker may have been aware of the positions they wished to address through previous communications, the public was not, and it sounded as though some of the delegates were not either. While any leader is free to employ a leadership style which he or she is most comfortable with, all leadership styles are not equal in their ability to make persons feel valued and comfortable. The result in this case was hurt, frustration, and anger. Some leaders find it impossible to ever apologize, but apologies, even for unintended consequences, are seldom an error and almost always lead to improved relationships and increased trust in government and its leaders. Is one due in this case? We strongly recommend it as a helpful step. We urge you as the Assembly of Delegates to consider what positive steps you will now take. We hope you will reflect on ways to bring healing following this event and how the Assembly of Delegates might be more open to all speakers, especially persons of color in Barnstable County. And finally, we believe this is an opportunity for you to bear witness to the truth that we can all do better. Sincerely, the Interfaith Justice Committee, and Rod McDonald is the chair. Thank you.
And I would remind people, because there are a lot of people who want to speak, I'm letting people speak, but going beyond 2.5 minutes is going to infringe on other people's rights. So just try and keep it to 2 minutes or thereabouts.
I apologize, didn't know the 2-minute limit.
I'm sorry?
I said I apologize, I wasn't aware of the 2-minute limit.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I said that.
At the beginning, but I was reading the letter. Okay.
I know, that's why I let you read your letter. But I just, in terms of going forward, obviously I'm not going to stop someone mid-sentence, but just be aware of the 2-minute limit. Is there another hand raised? Okay, Neil Ahern has a raised hand. I'm trying to find you, Neil. There you are. Okay, Neil, I can't see you. Can you put your video up?
One second. There you go. Does this work? My internet's pretty slow.
Okay. Well then, if you want, you're unmuted, so you could speak.
I just want to basically, I'm not even going to read my statement. I'll just echo what Judith just shared, and also in the hopes of providing more time for other people to speak. So, thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you. Do I see any more hands? Okay. Is it Jana? I can't see your whole name because of the typing.
Hi, my name is Jonna Powell. I'm a Harwich resident. Okay. I wanted to also second Judith and Neil, as well as Sunny, who wrote in, and some other people. I was specifically disheartened watching. I was not tuned in live to the last meeting, but I was watching, and as it was unfolding, it really just struck a chord with me. I feel like typically a lot of these things operate the same way that things have been operating for a long time, and we don't tend to see differences until they arise as an issue. And specifically, I felt that it was an opportunity that it shed light onto certain things, where what I specifically drew from it was, instead of an extra added respect for the people that were speaking, there was an extreme criticism against them. And I don't think that if I was speaking, that I would be criticized in the same way. I think that I would be given a moment to try to understand things. And I think that these are two very educated people who were very respectful and on topic. And I'm glad to see that the recall did pass, but I think it was important to, in that discussion at that time, which is no longer able to be discussed, that the specific language that was taken out of the recall, I believe, was addressed. And rather than silencing them, rather than addressing it, they were silenced. Not only silenced, they were thrown out of the meeting. And I think that that was an added step, that if somebody is misbehaving, quote unquote, in a meeting, that they can still participate in the meeting. You can mute them, you can do different things. So I felt that that needed to be handled differently. And I hope that moving forward, past COVID, that we still are able to attend meetings online to make it more accessible to people in various places that can't go in person to a meeting. So I don't see Zoom as a downfall to any of this. I think that it's a great thing. I think we do need to figure out some process points at times, but it's not a negative thing that we're on Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you. Next I saw, did I see a hand up? Okay, Katie Powell. Wait a minute, Katie. Hold on, I need to unmute you. Can you unmute yourself? Okay.
Yes. Do you have any intention of issuing a public apology to Danielle and Muska?
The public comment time is a time for you to comment. We typically don't respond, or it's a time for you to give your opinions to the assembly.
Okay. Well, I'd like to echo what everybody else is saying, that I felt it was highly inappropriate and just not fair to silence people who have an opinion. Everybody's opinion can be different than our own, but it's just not fair or friendly to shut people down for what they have to say.
Thank you. Do we have, Kara, did your hand go up again? Yes, okay. Let me unmute. Kara, I'm trying to unmute you.
Can
Okay.
you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Hi, thank you again. I'm Kara Duff of Brewster. I too am here to support Muska and Danielle, and thought that I wasn't there for the actual meeting, but I watched the video after, and it really like struck a chord with me. And what I saw was that two people were being shut down for asking to have difficult conversations. And I think what needs to happen is we all need to get uncomfortable and have these difficult conversations so that the status quo of kind of exclusivism is broken down. So these barriers, come down, and that we can come together and do a better job as citizens of Barnstable County, and welcoming people of color and people who have different opinions and people of different socioeconomic levels and people of different education levels. You get the picture. So anyway, I too thought that it was handled really poorly, and I hope you do issue an apology to them. I feel it is well deserved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fred Ritvo has his hand raised on the
yes, I
participant.
see that, Elizabeth. Thank you. I'm just I see a couple people with hands raised, but I will go. Fred
Ritvo. Thank you for the recognition, Delegate Harder. I just wanted to echo the sentiments that have already been made, but specifically in Judith's letter to the Assembly, the reference that the actions taken during the last meeting do undermine people's faith in local government, considering at a time that faith in government at all levels is at a all-time low. And I do feel that those actions have to be considered as something that can discourage people, especially young people who historically, both on the Cape and across the country, have lower levels of participation in government. It tends to discourage further action. I do feel that it was undemocratic specifically to remove those women from the previous meeting. And I do feel that the Assembly should consider issuing a public apology.
Thank you. I'm going through the screen. Okay, Jackie O'Rourke.
Thank you so much for the time to speak. As others have said, I am obviously here to echo support for Muska and Danielle, specifically for me, and I'm a resident of Eastham. I've grown up here on Cape Cod. I love this place with my heart and soul. It is the expectation of Cape Codders that our public officials are strong enough to admit a mistake and have the bravery to hold themselves accountable publicly. And that's what an apology does. And so I'm here strongly to ask for an apology from the delegates, as well as from you, Madam Speaker, right, to hold ourselves accountable to a higher standard. We're a better county than this. And I think issuing an apology is a brilliant first step in healing some of those wounds. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm going to go to this other screen for a moment and I'll come back. All right, go back to this screen. Okay, I don't see anyone else. Oh, okay, I'm sorry, Rose Parkington. And then I see Tara too. Okay, Rose, you first. I'm trying to unmute you. Are you unmuting as well? Yeah, okay.
Hi, I'm Rose Parkington from Wellfleet. I was here at the last Assembly meeting and witnessed what happened when Muska and Danielle were silenced and kicked off. It was really unsettling to watch what happened, and then what was furthermore unsettling was the justification for why they were kicked off. There was a picture painted that they were somehow nuisances for emailing the speaker with concerns and questions and taking up a lot of her time, that they were coming in with a personal agenda to, somehow disrupt the meeting or make personal attacks on, delegates. And I think this is a really harmful picture to be creating. It seemed very discriminatory to me as well. I think people of color often are facing this kind of troublemaker picture. and it can be used to silence and shame or punish or, you know, even worse. And so to see that happening was really disturbing to me. I feel like there was a judgment made by the speaker about Danielle's intent when she brought up a particular delegate's name. And she wasn't able to speak. She was silenced instead of just giving her the chance. And had she gone off, you know, with some insulting remarks, then, you know, you could have then taken it from there, but you made a judgment call. And something I've been really deeply sitting with was that Danielle was literally talking about her physical safety, you know, following threatening emails from Commissioner Ron Beatty. So for that to not be taken seriously and then, you know, tied into this whole troublemaker painting was really problematic and harmful. You know, I think she should have been able to voice what she wanted to say, bringing up a delegate that has publicly endorsed Ron Beatty and, you know, by extension, his hate speech. I think that should be taken very seriously. And, you know, I really urge the Assembly to prioritize hearing people's voices over some rules about, you know, proper decorum or whatnot, and really prioritize listening to people of color in our community. So I echo everybody as well and urge the Speaker and the Assembly to think about this and really sit with this deeply. And I do hope for an apology. Thank you.
Thank you. Tara?
I won't take up too much time. I just want to say that I am here as well to support Muska and Danielle, my sisters. As a woman of color, I was enraged watching the video. I am very disappointed in my town delegation, and I would appreciate an apology as soon as possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Daniel.
Hi, good afternoon. Yeah, so in addition, I do want to echo the fact that I was concerned about the way that the previous meeting transpired, and obviously echoing the sentiments of many of those who spoke tonight about it. However, I really also want to emphasize the fact that, you know, the county government does a lot of great work behind the scenes, and the Assembly of Delegates do a lot of great work behind the scenes to support county government. So it's really a shame that a lot of this work is getting outshone by behavior that we saw in the previous meeting. And so I think it's really important when a lot of the people that sit on this assembly and a lot of people that participated in what happened at the last meeting are thinking about you know, their actions going forward, that they keep in mind that it's not a personal issue here. It's not an issue of personal pride or and your decision shouldn't be framed in that way. The Assembly, for once, has a really big spotlight on it right now, and how the participants and the members of this Assembly act going forward is going to be the narrative going forward. So it's really important that those that sit on this Assembly do everything in their power to act better going forward and not distract from the valuable work that is being done by the public servants whose job it is there to support. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, I'm not seeing anyone. Haley. No.
Hi, thank you. I appreciate the time. I also am here to support Ms. Yosef and Ms. Toby. I'm echoing a lot of what has already been said, so I will try to briefen up. But my particular concern was that aside from being kicked out, the issues being brought to the forefront were labeled as a personal agenda. And I think that this serves to other the people that were here, to otherize them and make them outsiders. And I think that every effort was made to do so with particular language of, pardon me.
So, is someone unmuted? I'm sorry, I can't hear you speaking because there's sounds.
I'm sorry, that's mine.
Oh, okay. Okay, I just didn't, that's fine if it's yours. I didn't want to.
I appreciate that. I will pause in my and give the floor to someone else who can be heard at the moment.
No, Haley, it's all right. I just didn't want someone else to be coming in over your voice.
I felt that some of the language was, they didn't know, they couldn't understand. This was already explained. They sent time-consuming emails. It was a complicated issue. They had too many questions. And I just think that that is something perhaps to reflect on, particularly at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, Marianne Miller.
Hi, I'm Marianne from Dennis, and I was present at the meeting on September 2nd. And I just want to repeat what everyone is saying, that I was really appalled by the treatment of both Muska and Danielle. And I think it would be really incumbent on you and other delegates to issue an apology. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We will now, I see no other hands raised. We will now go into the assembly meeting. The assembly will convene and we will have a discussion and vote on the proposed ordinance 2018, which is the dredge budget supplemental appropriation. Is there a motion to put ordinance 2018 on the floor?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Any comments or discussion on that? Yes, Delegate Oman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I fully support this ordinance. I think it's a great idea that we finally got 2 dredges back on board. I can hardly wait to see the success stories that follow them. It's one of the great things that the county has done for all of the citizens of Cape Cod. Save Brewster. and I will heartily endorse it.
Thank you. Delegate O'Hara.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not to echo John's words, but I think that they're off to a great start. I think they seem to be well organized. I'm very happy with to be able to support this funding request. I do know that I asked them to reach out to the work group. I think that's how they refer to themselves, with each member from each community. And they coordinate and come up with a plan. And they've done that. They've forwarded the membership, each of the members, so that they can contact one another. Everything so far is just moving incredibly smoothly. I'm really encouraged by what so far has happened. Thank you.
Thank you. Could Terry Gallagher and Linda Zern, those 2 delegates, please just unmute yourselves and say something so we can be on one screen so I can see who wants to comment.
Hi, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. And I don't see Linda, but when she does, thank you. It's difficult to make sure that everyone gets recognized when you're on 2 screens. Anyone else from the assembly on the dredge enterprise? Okay, so we will have a vote on ordinance 2018. Will the clerk please call the vote?
Doug Brown,
Yes.
Mary Chafee,
Yes.
Terry Gallagher,
Yes.
Lillian Green,
Yes.
Elizabeth Harder,
Yes.
Jim Killian,
Yes.
Suzanne McAuliffe,
Yes.
Thomas O'Hara,
Yes.
John Oman,
Yes.
Yes.
Brian O'Malley,
Yes.
Randy Potash,
Yes.
Patrick Princey,
Yes.
Linda Zern. Madam Speaker, proposed ordinance 20-18 passes with 87.19% of the delegates voting yes, 12.81% are absent, now known as ordinance 20-11.
Thank you. The next ordinance is 20-19, and this is the budget supplemental appropriation, and the total of the 4 sections is $449,297. Is there a motion to put the ordinance on the floor?
So
Moved.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, any comments or discussion? All right, seeing none, will the clerk please call the vote?
Doug Brown,
Yes.
Mary Chafee,
Yes.
Terry Gallagher,
Yes.
Lillian Green,
Yes.
Elizabeth Harder,
Yes.
Jim Killian,
Yes.
Suzanne McAuliffe,
Yes.
Thomas O'Hara,
Yes.
John Omen,
Yes.
Brian O'Malley,
yes.
Randy Potash,
Yes.
Patrick Princey,
Yes.
Linda Zern.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, proposed ordinance 20-19 passes with 96.34% of the delegates voting yes, 3.66% are absent, now known as ordinance 20-12.
Thank you. Next item is a discussion and vote on proposed resolution 2005. This is presented by Delegate Green, and it's in support of an IT bond bill. Delegate Green?
Yes, I'd like to move this proposed resolution.
Second. Okay. Would you like to give just a brief background on it?
Yes, I'd be glad to. This is a resolution to authorize a letter to Governor Charles Baker, signed by the Assembly Speaker, to ask for Governor Baker to release funds designated in the IT bond bill for Barnstable County projects. There are 3 projects that have been identified, and I have reached out to each one of the entities to make sure that it would be helpful for us to write this letter. And I've also reached out to the senator and representative who put the bond bill before the Senate and House of Representatives to make sure that this would be helpful, and they've agreed that it would be, and it's our delegation, of course, Sarah Peak and Julian Sear. And this would have, if of course, the Senate and House have both approved this, and the governor has signed this IT bond bill. But it's another matter to have the funds actually released to Barnstable County. It would be extremely helpful to have $400,000 for the Cape Cod Commission to conduct a regional study. There would be funding of not less than $100,000 for Cape Cod Community College to equip students in need with technology necessary to participate in remote learning, and $1.7 million in funds allocated for Open Cape internet connectivity projects on the Cape and Islands. I've been following this for a number of years. In my town, Wellfleet, there are a number of people in pockets in my town that don't have connectivity. And, before, as we were learning January, even before the COVID situation, there were, this was a dire situation, and dealing with emergency situations, it has been dire in several instances. But now, in this day and time, this money would be very helpful in for people of all ages, for education, people working at home, telemedicine visits, emergency services, for the elderly and communications, and the ability of local government to meet and function. So I urge my fellow delegates to support this resolution and letter. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Yes, Delegate Killian.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. Just a question to the Delegate Green. Are you aware why these funds have not been released? Is it a situation where because the state funding is about $6 billion in the red, is this being withheld until the state gets a clearer picture on its financial health in the coming months, or is there some other reason that you're aware of?
What I've been told is that a bond bill like this doesn't mean automatically the funds get released. It means that typically, this is just typical for bond bills, that advocacy for the funds to be released is just a typical strategy, and that it would be helpful for us to support this because we're delegates representing each one of the 15 towns in Barnstable County, so that might have some weight in having these funds released.
So just to follow up, you're not aware of any specific reason? In other words, are they looking at specific projects to allocate these funds for that which the county may not qualify, or is it just, I mean, I assume that our delegation are lobbying for these funds, obviously to no success at this point, but I just wondered if there was something specific that was holding it up. That's all.
From my knowledge, no. It's just, this is just a typical process that happens with with bond bills in general.
Anyone else have a question or comment? Yes, Delegate O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was pleased to co-sponsor this resolution. Even before the pandemic, we all know that our cellular service and particularly our internet service on the Cape have been inadequate. And the impact of so many more people working from home, holding meetings like this all the time, clearly has been that the need for improved internet service throughout the Cape is so very much more apparent. And I'm very much in support of this notion, freeing up the funds. Thank you.
Yes, Delegate Brown.
I would strongly support this as well. And it's true. I think all these bond bills, they just earmark the money, but it won't happen unless there's a community push to get the money. And I would say any towns that are affected, their Board of Selectmen or Select Board should be sending letters as well, because as the letters pile up, they start to consider releasing the money.
Thank you. Yes, Delegate Green.
I would echo what Delegate Brown has just said. We should all be urging our select boards to send letters. And also I understand various town committees that would be affected should also lobby for this in letters. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that has covered all the delegates. Will the clerk please call the vote for the resolution 20-05?
Doug Brown,
Yes.
Mary Chafee,
Yes.
Terry Gallagher,
Yes.
Lillian Green,
Yes.
Elizabeth Harder,
Yes.
Jim Killian,
Yes.
Suzanne McAuliffe,
Yes.
Thomas O'Hara,
Yes.
John Oman,
Yes.
Brian O'Malley,
Yes.
Randy Potash,
Yes.
Patrick Princey,
Yes.
Linda Zern.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, proposed resolution 20-05 passes with 96.34% of the delegates voting yes, 3.66% are absent, now known as resolution 20-05.
Thank you. The next item is committee reports. Does anyone have any committee reports to present? Any of the delegates? Seeing none, the next is report from the clerk.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Not too much to report this evening. Looking ahead, just as a reminder, the next assembly meeting will be on October 7th. We meet the first and the third Wednesday of every month. There are 5 Wednesdays in September, and we will not meet on September 30th. I'm presuming that on the next agenda, the speaker will place the proposed ordinance that was submitted by the commissioners today for the expansion of the nursing program, and also potentially a proposed resolution that may be coming in under the next agenda item. And that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The next item is other business, and we do have a resolution from Delegate O'Malley and Chafee that is going to be presented. I don't know if anybody wanted to give a brief intro. It's not for debate or discussion, but just a resolution that is being submitted for debate and discussion at our next meeting. Yes, Delegate Chafee.
Oh.
You unmuted. I didn't know if you wanted to speak. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Just very briefly, when I became the select board chair earlier this summer, one of the first things I did was to codify or to put into language what the rules of procedure are in meetings. We've operated very smoothly and without problems in Brewster, but it's really useful so that everyone who participates in a public meeting knows what the expectations are, what can be done, what can't be done. And in the Assembly's case, a number of laws implicate what we can and cannot do in a meeting, specifically the open meeting law and the county charter. So this resolution was actually Delegate O'Malley's idea, and we've crafted a proposed resolution that would indeed create rules of procedure for our meetings. There's nothing new here. We've been doing all of these things. The laws that we work under have been in place, but this is our attempt to compile everything in one place so that meeting procedures are clear for everyone who participates. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Delegate O'Malley? Yes.
Very, very briefly, I would simply say that I agree that there's really essentially nothing new here. It's our intention that by passing a resolution and by making these guidelines public, that the expectations that the public have, we want them in. It's very much our intention to encourage public engagement and participation in these discussions. And we want to make it clear from the get-go that the ground rules apply to everyone and they're not going to be changed from one person to the next. So we hope that this can be publicized and serve as a welcome, really. We'll debate this later.
Delegate Harder, this is just a resolution coming in, so there's no debate at this point. I just allowed a brief introduction. If you wanted to talk about something under other business, did you have something to present for other business?
No, I just had a question about Attorney Troy's letter, if that's going to have anything to do
that's
with
appropriate for, that was just informational. That will be on the next agenda.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Does anyone else have anything under other business? Okay. One of the things that occurred to me was a couple of years ago, I had mentioned an idea, and I think we started to do it, about putting together, the town of Yarmouth had a video of all the committees and what they did, and it was a way to let people know what people do and what how to participate. And I'm thinking that might benefit the county, that if there was a video not only about what the county did, but how to participate. Because one of the things that I think is really important is to show people how to do things in a world that is complicated and not well known to people who aren't actually in the roles. I know a lot of people who come into elected positions need to learn about open meeting law and learn about protocols. So it might be helpful if we, as a county, task someone with a video, not on just what the county offers and what the county does, but how do you get elected to the Assembly of Delegates? How do you get elected to the county commissioners? How do you participate? I've had a lot of questions about how do we get on this committee? How do we get on that committee? So it would be, I think, helpful to perhaps produce a video, the county, and the information I know is available in bits and pieces, but it's not really in one engaging spot. And I think the county, for the future, we might want to consider seeing if that's a possibility, because I'm, in spite of the fact that I know I've been criticized for my behavior, I am really heartened by the participation, and I'm really very happy to see so many faces and so many people who normally aren't engaged in county government. I feel badly that it was a negative thing that brought everyone in, but I'm looking at a positive opportunity here to bring more people into the workings of government. Does anyone else have any other business? Delegate Killian.
Yeah, Madam. Just a question. Units had mentioned the flu clinic this weekend and the time. Do you know where that's going to be located? Is that just going to be in the parking lot, the county?
It's at Barnstable County Complex. I think 8 to 12, and I believe it's a drive-through, so I'm not even sure you get out of your car.
Yeah, no, he did mention that, but I just know exactly that was a spike.
I think, if I may, I think it's up at the old jail. Up
So
where
you go up to the back of the, hopefully
where
they'll
the
have
east,
signs.
the east wing. That's where I think they're gonna.
Is there any charge for it, or is it free?
It's free,
Okay, that's what I thought.
I believe. I hope I'm not giving information. I believe it's free. All right, anything else? I'll take, Delegate Brown.
I don't know if it's appropriate to report on activities of in our towns, but Falmouth had its town meeting on Monday night, and it was a very environmental themed meeting. We passed a resolution declaring a climate emergency. We passed a ban on nip-sized bottles and single-use plastic bottles as well. So I thought it was interesting, and I'd share that.
Yeah, thank you. I think just having a town meeting is an event these days.
Yeah,
It used to be
a little challenging.
kind of a have to do. Now it is an event.
Right.
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.